Hi, Louis-Pierre Gignac, President and CEO of G-Mining Ventures. We're building the Tocantinzinho mine in Brazil. We started construction in September and have spent close to $45 million already as of the end of October.
Mike Hodgson, Sarabi Gold, CEO. We're a producer of about 35 to 40,000 ounces of high-grade gold underground in Pará State, the Tapajós region in northern Brazil. And we're developing our new project, or our project, Coringa Mine, which is now underground, and we're producing ore and trucking high-grade ore to Palito. And basically, Coringa will double our production up to about 80,000 ounces. And on parallel to this, we've got a very exciting exploration program going on in and around the Palito area, where we're looking for high bulk deposits, high volume bulk deposits.
I'm Alan Carter. I'm the President and CEO of Cabral Gold. Cabral is an advanced exploration company with an asset in the Tapajós. We've got just under 1.2 million ounces indicated and inferred. We've got two known gold deposits that comprise that resource with two new discoveries. We also have a significant amount of oxide mineralization, which is near surface and free digging. So we have a lot of work planned for the next 12 months.
Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us again. And always nice to hear from you. And I do want to hear about what you've been doing with your companies. But the big question I would like answered is around the outcome of the last elections with Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, Lula, back in power. What does it mean for mining? Louis-Pierre, what do you think?
I mean, for me, I think it's just business as usual, in my opinion. There's been mining under Lula in the past, and I think there will be continuing in the future. So I don't see a big change there. And I'd say for us located in the state of Pará, Pará is an important mining state in Brazil and an important part of the economy. So I think that's there to stay going forward.
What do you reckon, Mike? Is it affecting you?
No, I go along with what Louis just said, really. It's interesting. I've just done the one-to-one conference in London, and I've just been to Semexim down in Ouro Preto in Belo. And particularly in London, it was very strange that Lula has this reputation of being anti-mining, which is like bizarre, because so many mines were opened underneath him. He was big pals with the Ike Batistas of the world, who set up so many, God knows how many mining companies and mines in Brazil. So I don't know why there seems to be this negative perception with him. I think he just said in his manifesto that he was going to try to control deforestation, and what's wrong about that? So that's all he ever said, but the people have kind of extrapolated that to him being anti-mining, which is bizarre. Both candidates are very pro-mining, in my view, so I echo Louis's words.
Alan, it sounds like no point in asking you. It's not affecting you, is it?
Well, I think I agree with Louis-Pierre and what Mike just said. I mean, both Mike and I have been working in Brazil for an awful long time, and we've both been working in Brazil during 4 previous PT governments, 2 of which were Lula, and then 2 of which were his successor, Dilma. And as Mike said, that was a very pro-mining environment. I mean, I agree with Mike. I think he will look into tightening some of the environmental regulations. I also think he'll look at tightening up some of the illegal mining that's been done by what they call garimpeiro miners in Brazil. But as Mike said, that's no bad thing. That's a good thing.
Louis-Pierre, there's obviously over like 3,000 mining companies in Brazil, so it clearly has got the history there. And from what you guys have said, there's no reason to fear Lula or any changes of that, changing that outcome or outlook. But I've looked. You guys have come off a very, very difficult year. All of you, the mining industry as a whole, but also it's been tough down in Brazil. Are the sort of supply chain issues resolving themselves? I know you come from a service company, so Louis-Pierre, you've told us that you've managed to kind of circumvent some of the issues. But what are the big red flags still currently in existence?
Yeah, I think there's still disruptions out there, but I think in Brazil we've made a lot of the procurement for our project within the country. So that's essentially smoother than buying from overseas. But like we've just seen with the elections, there was a little disruption in the transportation industry, so some road blockages of people protesting. But essentially that was a short-lived, event post the elections, and that's all come back to normal now. So yeah, I do see that as just being a continuation in the industry of supply chains being a little bit out of whack, but I'm happy to be buying most of our things in Brazil.
Right, and Mike, you really had problems about a year ago. with the supply chain issues? Are companies like yours, because you're slightly different sizes. Obviously, G-Mining's around 300 million market cap. You guys are a lot less than that at the moment. So, are they benefiting from size and scale, or are you able to take advantage of being long-standing in the district?
Yeah, we did have problems, and being a very sort of smaller business, we cannot have a huge amount of inventory in stock. So there are some items we just have to buy on a regular basis, and yes, that can become a real issue if you do get some delays. A year ago it was about there just wasn't any available, and now, and as Louis just said, yeah, there have been some road blockages, but to be honest, it's not been as bad as I think it was rather sensationalized. And it's always been very short-lived. And I think there was all this talk after the election. There's going to be wide-scale sort of disruption and all this to try to overturn the result. But I think we're talking about half. We talked a lot about it last week in CEMEXIM, and there's about 0.5% of the country are kind of still disgruntled about what's happened. And I think generally the football's on now, and everyone's watching the football. So it's like a new thing to worry about. How will Brazil win the World Cup or not? So that's probably been, I mean, I joke, but it probably has been quite a good way of healing the country in many ways. Brings a lot of people together. For Brazil goes completely just when the football's on, like it is this afternoon. It just, that's it. The country has just come to, everyone's wearing yellow shirts and that's it, and they're all together again. Yeah, but we were affected by that, and we still will be a little bit. But generally, it's been fairly easy for us. I think the biggest problem that we have, as you know, one thing I would like to see the new government do is really, really try to make inroads into permitting and permitting progress. We have a little bit of a problem, and a few companies have suffered this, and we are included. In particularly in the state of Pará, there's a lot of bureaucracy over permitting, and I think the situation we have today, from my own personal experience in Brazil, is we have the public prosecution process, or prosecutors have wield a lot of power in Brazil, and they are, to a degree, they are preventing the government agencies from doing their jobs. That's one of the problems that we found, and it's frustrating that a lot of these agencies somewhat live in fear of the public prosecutor, and it makes them sort of be very overly cautious, I think. So we have suffered a little bit there. Our project at Coringa, the mine is ongoing, and as you know, we're now trying to go for a sort of a oil classification route and avoid building the process plant. We think we've got to make a better margin by trucking a pre-concentrate or sorting. It's a very simple process to do, but it does seem to be overly complicated for the authorities to actually help us with the permitting on that. So I really hope the government change will bring some improvement in speed of processing and such the like.
Okay, and Alan, if I look at your business, right, you're talking about doing these sort of these blankets, oxide blankets first. Do you think different types of mining are going to be impacted in different ways in Brazil? Brazil's looked at by the rest of the world as the lungs of the world, right? The big Amazon forest is the first thing that comes to mind. But are you going to be impacted by outside views of what it's like to do business, and what it's like to do business like in Brazil, or do you actually have a full confidence in your state that you're in and the federal government's pro-mining stance?
Matt, my expectation is that we won't have any significant impact. Like I said, I think Lula will tighten up the environmental regulations, but which we all adhere to. I think he will tackle the illegal mining, which has been done in some areas, has been done and continues to be done in some of these protected areas. But I don't, I think we're all very conscious of the environmental and social concerns. We take those extremely seriously at Cabral. We do a lot of work in our community. There's a village of about 300 people in our community, very close to our project or within our project area, and we've done a lot of work within that community, like renovating the school and putting in a new water supply, building a health post, picking up the garbage, things like that, just to try and make things a little bit better for the local population. So, look, you have to take a long-term view in mining, but I don't really see that the change in the political environment is going to have any massive impact for us. Like I said, I've been active during 4 terms of the PT government, which had all preceded Bolsonaro's government, and the authorities were very, very supportive. I take Mike's point. I think there is some room for improvement. We haven't had the same sort of permitting issues that Mike has had. We found that the authorities have been very, very supportive of what we tried to do and what we are doing.
Yeah, no, we've seen a few people talking about. We've spoken to a few people talking about the airstrips that are being built into protected areas. You know, I think Yanomami indigenous land up near Venezuela. I've seen as many as 60 different airstrips being built, open pit mining with, you know, questionable standards of mining happening, and then flown out by planes. So it's a big topic. You can sort of see why people looking in might be sort of tainted by that, but you guys trying to do things the right way, or maybe thrown into the same bucket as it were. So you guys have got a job to do as well, Louis-Pierre. I mean, you must support the government's new government stance on this.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at the state of Pará, going back to Mike's comment, you know, I think the regulators in Pará have many projects to deal with. I think they're essentially just overloaded with the number of files that they need to deal with. So it's always a question of where your project is on the top of the pile, or somewhere in the middle, or at the bottom. So I think that's really the case of what's happening in Pará. It's not that they're not providing permits or lack, you know, holding back on providing permits. It's just a lack of capacity in these administrations. And, you know, for us, just going back to trying to be carbon neutral or carbon zero, I mean, those are great ambitions. I mean, obviously, we're building a power line as part of our project that's going to connect into the grid in Brazil, which is based on essentially 80% renewable sources. So, you know, that's part of our project that we built into our CapEx to try and lower our carbon footprint. And, you know, we received our deforestation permits and several permits that we required to do the construction activities that we're doing now. And, you know, we've received SEMAS on site as part of inspections, and, you know, there's many protocols that go into place in terms of protecting biodiversity and wildlife and fauna that we implemented as part of our procedures. And, you know, that's really a high level of standard that exists in Brazil that you need to achieve.
Well, I mean, just sticking with you, Louis-Pierre, obviously you've raised a lot of money. You've been spending a lot of money recently. So in a meaningful way, the economic environment is kind of secondary for you. Your job is to actually get this thing ramped up and into production as quickly as possible. But you must have some sympathy for the guys at the moment, because I think gold has come off. 18 months of downward pressure on gold price is making it very, very difficult for good projects to kind of get going. So for you, your advice to other juniors would be what?
Well, look, it's always a question of getting over that line of getting to the finish line, of getting financed and having your permits, and that's always can be a lengthy period in any project. But I think, you know, Pará is a good place to develop projects, and especially where we are all located in the Tapajós. So I think, yeah, I think good projects will find money and will get permits. So I'm not, you know, I think everyone is doing the right thing here. And, you know, we're sitting on 100 million 18 of cash that's going into the project now. We have 160 million committed already into the project, so we're advancing quite well. And like you say, I mean, our objective is to reach commercial production in the second half of 24, where we start generating cash from this new gold mine, which, you know, in the end will be a significant gold producer in Brazil.
Right, and Mike, I've got to go to you on this one, and Alan, I mean, do feel free to jump in as well. With junior exploration, you know, in moments like this, in economic moments like this, you can become cash constrained, right? You may have a great project, but the money's just not available to you, and the job is to survive, quite frankly, or get through this cycle, this downward cycle, and out the other side. What's your message to shareholders, you know, your shareholders or other investors looking in at the gold market and thinking this thing is acting just that little bit weird at the moment? I can't read it. History is no indicator of how it's going to behave. I'm going to avoid it. So what would you say to that audience?
Well, like we discussed a couple of weeks ago there, Matt. I mean, we're trying to do a lot for a little company with not a great deal of cash flow. We've got a lot of things to actually fulfill. We're trying to advance Coringa, which we're funding its development out of cash flow, which is difficult. Doesn't leave a lot of money for exploration, but we've got a very exciting exploration program ahead of us, and there's a lot of work we've got to do in the next 12 months to actually keep a lot of our ground. The pandemic caused us to almost put a freeze on exploration, unfortunately, or slow it right down. So we lost a couple of years there. As you know, we're talking to a lot of companies for potential JVs on that, and those discussions are going really well. So we hope to have a very exciting year next year. But just going back to a point that you were talking, I wanted to just answer something back to the previous point about working in Brazil. And I think one of the problems that all the juniors have is Brazil is a country that's very much dominated by large-scale companies mining large-scale deposits. And the junior mining sector in Brazil is not terribly well understood by the authorities. It's not terribly well understood by many in Brazil. And there tends to be a little bit of a one-size-fits-all sort of policy. For example, the ways tailings dams are done, the tailings dam sort of whole sort of part of the business is driven by, what the government are now thinking about what Vale are doing, and they've got these enormous dams. There's no kind of sliding scale on how big your dam is and what's in it to actually define a risk profile. So we tend to find the little companies are having to do exactly what the large companies are doing, and it's very difficult. And so I think that's something we always battle. And going back to Alan's point about the garimpeiros and the garimpos, if you're not huge, you're either huge or you're a small domestic miner, which therefore you're viewed as being perhaps not as professional as you should. Every time we've brought officials to site, they've been absolutely astonished about how professional we are, and they go, "Oh, goodness gracious, you're a small company, and you're still operating in a very professional way." And they're always taken aback because they're used to seeing small companies basically screwing up. So it's we're always sort of battling that sort of reputation a little bit. So that is tough, and I think it is all about education, which we're trying to do all the time. But saying all of that, I don't want to be knocking anything. Pará is a place where you can do business and you can start mines quickly, and we've done it twice. We started Sao Chico in about 6 months from acquiring it, and we're not much slower at Coringa. So. And I could think of a ton of countries where that just wouldn't be possible. So that said, you can find things and start.
I mean, I say Bolsonaro has spent a lot on infrastructure, especially in Pará State. You guys are the beneficiaries of that, which is good news. But then with Lula coming in again, there was talk. I don't know where it's got to with him sort of mulling over, a new mining royalty in Brazil. So these sorts of conversations, kind of give with one hand and take with another. It feels. I mean, obviously, as a producer, Mike, you're going to know a little bit more about that, I suspect.
Well, yes, that might come, and I don't think in our case it would be, it wouldn't be so onerous for us. The levels that were talked about in the past, I don't know where they're going to revisit those levels from before, but it would be not. I mean, it's happening elsewhere in South America a lot, so it wouldn't be surprised if it does. But as I say, if the levels are reasonable, we're happy to go along with that. It's fair enough. But at the same time, it's a bit of give and take. We'd like to see permitting progress improve and et cetera at the same time. And so,
Alan, so one for you. I don't know if you want to build on what Mike has just said there with regards to doing business in the country. For you, what are the long poles in the tent, and what's your message to shareholders?
Look, I think Brazil is a place that you need a little bit of time to come up the learning curve. There is a bit of a learning curve, as Mike has alluded to. But I mean, I think it's really important. I think I said this last time, to realise that some of the world's largest gold mining and mining companies in general are very heavily invested in Brazil. On the gold space, you've got Anglo Gold Ashanti, Kinross's biggest mine is here. You've got London Mining here. You've got Equinox Gold. You've got Yamana. Some of the biggest names in our industry are invested in Brazil. It's got a 12-month season. So we can drill and mine here 12 months of the year, Matt. We've not got to worry about ice roads or something else where everything's frozen for 6 months of the year. It's not. So look, I think from my perspective, running an exploration company, it's obviously somewhat frustrating because it's less about political changes. And for us, the biggest challenge is access to capital, because exploration companies are always, when the market turns has negative sentiment like it is now, exploration companies tend to suffer the most. And we've certainly seen a massive decline in our share price, which is soul destroying given the spectacular results that we've put out in the last 18 months and the new discoveries we've made. That's very, very frustrating. It means our cost of capital is higher. It means we can't access the same amount of capital that we did, even just 12 months or so ago. So being able to sort of ride that sort of storm is important. I've seen these cycles. I don't know, 6, 7, 8 of these cycles now. It's always the same thing. Shareholders and investors will be of the opinion, and there are many out there right now who are of the opinion that, the world has ended kind of thing. It's complete disaster. The industry is now in for a permanent state of negative sentiment. It's an unloved industry, etc., etc. However, this is a cyclical business. I cannot stress that enough. And if you are contemplating investing in the mining business, particularly on the exploration side, where you can make massive returns, you can make 10 times, 20 times, sometimes 30 times your money. If you are contemplating an investment like that, make sure you've got a long-term view, because you haven't, in all likelihood, you will lose money. And by long-term, I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years plus. Pick the companies that have strong fundamentals. And I would suggest to anybody watching this that the 3 companies up here we all have strong fundamentals, projects of real merit here with committed management teams. So, look, just pick the companies that are fundamentally good. Recognize right now that there is a massive opportunity because everything is on fire sale. It really is. The equivalent, if you go into a store wherever you live, the equivalent would be something that you could buy for $10 a year ago, you can now buy for $1. I mean, that's the kind of sale we're talking about right now. So I think, yeah, those are my comments, Matt.
Okay, just one last one for all of you. As an honest answer here, because I alluded to it earlier. I think the gold market is quite a strange one. It just hasn't been following the same rules. Do you think this next generation, these millennials, Gen Z, whoever you want to refer to, get gold in the way that the slightly older generation did? Do you think gold is having to walk into a slightly new ecosystem of investors, or is it just that it's a cycle, it's a phase, don't worry, we'll come out the other side? I mean, Louis-Pierre, you've got institutional investors in your project, invested in you. What are they telling you?
Yeah, look, from my perspective, we have really good shareholders. I think they understand where we're at in the phase of this project. We're in the bottom of the Lassonde curve, where I like to say we're at. We're also very undervalued at this point until we actually de-risk the project by getting it into commercial production. So we have that, that to go through, and we suffer from the fear of developers not delivering on their capex and inflation. But we're feeling very comfortable with our capex and our control on our schedule as well. So we're not internally concerned with that. But obviously we face the same headwinds of what people see in the market with other projects around the world. But I think it is a cyclical business. I think the failures of cryptocurrencies are proving to the world that that's complete speculation. I think the mining business is actually founded on real assets, and it's a currency that's there to stay. And I see it recovering. And the gold price is actually quite good. It's just surprising to not see more investment in the space, to be honest.
Well, but even the institutions are a little bit nervous. We've seen them sort of rush into ESG badging and then be told off by the SEC and having rush out of that again. We've seen this quite a few of them getting caught out in the whole crypto situation with FTX, etc. So the institutions are not immune to the emotional decision making and the repercussions of the market. Retail, a little bit more so. So I guess both Alan and Mike, you're, because of the retail component that is very emotional investing, you're suffering a little bit from that. So again, what's your message to them? Is it just a simple case of don't worry, we've cycled in, we'll cycle out, or is there more to it? What do you reckon, Mike?
Well, I really like what Alan just said, actually, about, and I do say that when I'm brave enough to some of the retail shareholders about, you have to take a long-term view, and that's the point. I mean, I look at us and I say, well, we raised money 18 months ago at 72p, and we're now less than half of that. And the company, from a technical perspective and every perspective, is in much better shape. So therefore, if there's value at 72p and we raise money like that, we're a flipping bargain at 30p, which is what we are. So that makes that says it all, really. And Louis just stole my thunder on the cryptocurrency. That's exactly. I'm sure people will wake up and realize that fundamentally gold is the ultimate investment, and it just no one can make sense of what's going on with the gold price, really. And I think it will. I believe in it. Always have, and I think we wouldn't be doing this job if we didn't. So, or if we didn't, we shouldn't be doing this job. Period. So I think it will come. Bit of patience for everybody, please. I'm asking Sarabi shareholders, just have a bit of patience. We will get a very exciting exploration campaign underway next year, and we will get Coringa fully permitted, and we might have a bit of a 6-month delay on it, but we'll get there.
Okay, well, I think the message is crypto is not replacing real gold, real physical gold or gold mining by the looks of it, and we're getting into this new mining paradigm. The realities of investing and investing in the real projects, I think, seems to be the message for 2023. Look, I'm going to ask each one of you now. Again, I'll start with Louis-Pierre, if I may, just to give us your 2-minute sales pitch, which you would like to say to shareholders and non-shareholders as well. Why should they buy your shares? Louis-Pierre, you go first.
Yeah, look, I think we're, like I just mentioned, we're in the bottom of the Lassonde curve. I see our stock re-rating as we deliver on the project. And we've seen that in other companies that were in the development stage, and once they got to commercial production, and saw a nice re-rating in their stock. So I expect that to happen with the GMIN Venture shares. We have great shareholders, most of which, in our last financing invested at 80 cents. So I see our current stock price around 70 cents as being a nice entry point for investors. These are guys that did 3 months of due diligence on us, looking at every aspects of the business. So I think that provides a lot of comfort for smaller, retail investors to buy into the company. And just to finish, it's a project that has 2 million ounces of reserves and a very large land package. So lots of optionality comes with the sound investment that we've identified already.
Well, we've been in the area for a long time, the company, very committed to the Tapajos. So we know the local communities, and we know the political agencies, etc., very well. So we're a big fish in a small pond. So we've actually developed Palito and Sao Chico, and now we're developing Coringa. So people know we're not here today and gone tomorrow. We've certainly got the T-shirt and the workforce and the methodology to know how to do business with a lot of state experience, and that's it. So we have I think we probably are the best bet to actually get Coringa up and running, which will double our production. And we're going to do that for a very modest sum, $15 million, some of which will be probably debt funded and some out of cash flow. That's what we'll do. So that amount of money will double our production and make us a 70,000 ounce producer. Not the biggest business in the world, obviously quite modest, but very green and very clean, high grade, small carbon footprint, and all those things. That ticks the ESG box as well, which for those who, it's becoming a very important part of our lives these days. And on top of that, we've actually got a fantastic exploration portfolio, which was pretty much parked for a number of years. And in and around Palito, we've got some great upside, a lot of Palito lookalikes, and some big stuff, as you know. The Matilda discovery made a porphyry copper deposit, which is very exciting. So we hope to move that forward in the next 12 months and have that in our hands, as well as doubling production.
Yeah, Matt, as I said, we're the exploration company in this trio. We're right next door to G Mining with Louis-Pierre there, so our claims are contiguous with theirs. We have a project which historically produced an enormous amount of placer gold during the gold rush 40 years ago. There's 2 million ounces came out of the streams here. We've got 2 gold deposits that currently form the resource. They're 5 kilometers apart. We've got 2 new discoveries where we've drilled some very, very high-grade holes that we don't have a resource on either of those 2 new deposits yet. We've got a significant amount of oxide mineralization, which is at surface, free digging. It's mineralized mud, basically, and saprolitic material that gives us a pathway for near-term production by heap leaching that oxide material. And we're trading right now, the value of our company is about $20 an ounce in the ground. So, I mean, and as you know, gold today is about $1,800 an ounce. Management's put in a significant amount of money into this company. I myself have invested $2.8 million. So, I mean, I'm aligned with our shareholders. We've got 43 peripheral targets with some very, very high-grade drill holes and high-grade boulders, high-grade channel samples. There's undoubtedly a lot more gold deposits in the hard rock at Kuyu that we haven't discovered yet. And so there's enormous upside. I mean, we're trading at 52-week lows. And as I said, we're trading at a value of just $20 US in the ground. So enormous upside.
Okay, well, there we go. We've answered the question. Is Brazil open for business? Is it open for business for mining companies? I think there's a resounding yes, I've heard. So Louis-Pierre Gignac, President and CEO of G Mining Ventures, Mike Hodgson, CEO of Sharpie Gold, and finally, Alan Carter, President and CEO of Cabral Gold. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.